significant aspect of the battle at Fort Ticonderoga influenced the remainder of the French and Indian War. It was 1758 in a small town named Ticonderoga, New York, named by the Iroquois Indians meaning "between two lakes." General James Abercrombie and his troops of 15,391 soldiers assembled for an attack on the Fort Ticonderoga. Dressed in long wool coats and high white socks, with a line of gunpowder kegs and barrels, and 44 cannons. To Abercrombie's surprise, he would not complete his mission of overtaking the fort, at least not on this day. The battle starts at 1 p.m., 3/4 of a mile west of the fort. General Montcalm and his soldiers build a wall constructed of wood 6 feet high. High on the ramparts, General Montcalm stares out, looking for any signs of Abercrombie and his army. General Abercrombie attacks Montcalm's line for nearly 6 hours. After many casualties and attacks that were unsuccessful, Abercrombie withdrew his army through the Abydos, leaving behind cannons. The unexpected victory at Fort Ticonderoga greatly boosted French morale and added to Montcalm's growing reputation as a general. It also forestalled a British advance down Lake Champlain toward Montreal for another year. After the 7-Year War, the British King George III started many things for political gain. One involved taxation. While America was thriving to rebuild and grow, King George III continued to keep proposing new taxes. The French and Indian War also began a revolution in efforts to become an independent nation, with a number of leaders rising from the dust to help America become independent, such honorable men as in George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and many, many more. The French and Indian War became a devastation on the economics, mainly killing the trades that were taking place between the French and the Native Americans. Economic lens. Indians hunted for furs, nearly to extinctions, for metals, knives, axe heads, pots, muskets, and clothes. A lot of these trades were carried out by travel of the waterways back and forth from Canada to America. Starting and ending the trades with the Native Americans would forever change a culture and forever change a way of life. Social lens. While the French and Indian War was being fought mainly between the French and British, many social cultures were affected by the war. The Native American culture started to become disrupted as soon as the trade industry started to happen. By the French and Indian War, the Native American culture was in complete disarray. Their normal way of life would never return to the way it was. The Native Americans became social outcasts on their own land. Changing history through a political lens. The French and Indian War changed history forever. While the French won the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga, the British won the war. King George III held more territory than any other leader at the time. While the power led to treaties, taxation, and Westerland policy, it also led to an escalation towards the American Revolutionary War for independence. There are many influences on history and the way history is told and viewed. Things in culture continuously change, and people's perspective change also. I started this class saying how historians are very important, and they have to be like detectives. I still believe this is true. However, I will be a little more cautious as there are many factors that need to be looked at, such as first and secondary sources. If their interpretation on the subject is biased, or if they are looking into heritage or history, what or how the world is at the time of the historian doing the research, as this may also cause biases that may be influencing their writing. Everyone has views and interpretation on historical events, which is why it is important to understand the diversity to one topic. Looking at a current event such as Civil Rights Act through a political and social lens will help. The civil rights in a political lens, you could look at the power struggle between white supremacy and anyone of color. This struggle would impact people's civil rights and their behaviors. Being that the country is a majority of whites and President Trump's immigration policies tipping more toward the whites, so it seems. This could be a way to influence the upcoming elections with the country seeming so divided. In the social lens, it would be hard not to look at Charlottesville, Virginia, and the civil rights of people that were not only violated, but also dramatically became deadly. The lens would look at how the communities were affected, the families of loved ones that have been killed and harmed in protest of civil rights. You could interview these people for first-hand information about the protest and their views and feelings on the subject. In my opinion, history does not repeat itself, as the past cannot come to the present. However, I do feel as though we have replicated events in the present that we should have learned from in the past. History is there to learn from, but we seem to put ourselves into the same similar events. Other current events come along and then they become history. Looking at the civil rights in history, we can look at the slide on the left. If we look through the economic lens on how colored people lived, survived, and struggled in the economy during the civil rights movement in the 60s. On the right, we look at the Native American economics after the 7-Year War. The picture is in 1780. The natives were poor. Their way of living has changed drastically. The way they hunted food, the way they dressed, the way they traveled. Both situations represent a depression of sorts that are now in history, but from different decades. However, the situations are very similar when viewing them through the different historical lenses that we have learned about. I think people should be obligated to learn about history. Maybe if people took the time to learn about history and facts of history, there would not be so much ignorance in the world. about a lot of different topics. Plus, like I said previously, history teaches us the stories so we do not repeat history.
Halfway across the globe and we're standing all spraying across the waves. You can't hear the sound. No fair trials, no trade, no liberties, no tea. Colonized America, we will stand for tyranny. Okay. And it's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. They paid you foolish tax, read the acts, and they just won't do. Wanna make it clear we believe this much is true. All men were created with certain unalienable rights. Among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize. It's too I'm across the globe and we're standing.